For this lesson, open the project 11G. We have a single 3-second clip in the timeline. Let's add some motion to it. Double-click to open it in the viewer, and click on the Motion tab. In the keyframe graph area, scrub to about a quarter of the way through and hit Ctrl-K. This simultaneously adds keyframes for basic motion, crop, and distort. The last 4 sections are unaffected. Scrub to 3/4 of the way through, and this time hit the Add Keyframe button on the lower right of the canvas. Same effect. It's good to know you can add this many keyframes at once, but I'd suggest using this shortcut sparingly. Having dozens of unnecessary keyframes can lead to wasted time and unexpected results. It's better to have as few keyframes as possible. It makes adjustments easier, and it's a lot less complicated. Let's assign some quick end values for scale, rotation, center, edge feather, and aspect ratio. Let's see what kind of mess we made. Now, click the Clip Keyframe Control button. The timeline expands vertically. The top green line represents filter keyframes. Earlier, I added a bloom filter to give us the flashing taillights effect. We'll cover filters in the next chapter, but I wanted you to see this bar in the timeline, and it's not present when no filters are applied. Click on the Filters tab and uncheck the bloom filter. Click back to the Motion tab. The blue bar represents Motion tab keyframes. The blank area is for loading a parameter's keyframes and editing them, and the little boxes below are for clip speed, a topic we'll cover later in the next chapter. You can change which areas are displayed by control-clicking the Clip Keyframe control. Only the checked areas are displayed. Uncheck Speed. It's a little confusing at first. We changed 5 attributes in the Motion tab, and we have only one blue bar with 2 keyframes to show for it. In the Motion tab, slide the first Scale keyframe left until the tooltip reads -8 frames, and slide the first Edge Feather keyframe left 16 frames. The blue bar now has 2 additional keyframes. It just shows us the location of the keyframes, not how many there are, or what their values may be. You can change which keyframe locations are displayed in the motion bar by control-clicking on it. This is how it works. Only the keyframes for the checked items will be displayed. If you want to see the keyframes for a single parameter, select Hide All. The motion bar is clear. Control-click again and select the item you want displayed. Let's see rotation. Only the rotation keyframes are displayed. The motion bar displays and allows you to adjust the location and time of an attribute's keyframes, not its value. To change values, we need to load the item in the timeline's keyframe graph area. Just control-click on the gray background and look under Basic Motion. Even though we keyframed the center point, that option is not available here because the value is made up of X and Y. It's multidimensional. And just as you can't smooth or add Bezier handles to the center parameter in the Motion tab, neither can you load it here in the timeline. Let's load rotation. Rotation loads because, like scale, it is one-dimensional. It consists of one number and can only go up or down. We need to zoom in on it to see it clearly. The track height controls don't affect the keyframe area, so we need to use a special control that appears only when the area is open. See the thin column between the track header and the actual track? Keep an eye on it as you hit Option T to toggle keyframes on and off. This is the Keyframe Editor Resize column. Click and drag upwards on it to make it nice and big. We can now edit the graph just like in the Motion tab. Drag the second keyframe up to about 1500. Hold the Command key if necessary. A full rotation is 360 degrees, so 1500 is just over 4 complete rotations. We're telling it to spin 4 times. Play it back to see. Now, Control-click each keyframe and select Smooth to ease in and out of the rotation. Now hold the Option key and add a keyframe in the middle. Drag it below the value of the first keyframe to a negative value of around 180. We go from 0 rotation to a negative value to a positive value. Can you anticipate the result? The rotation changes direction. Editing keyframes in the timeline is actually much easier than in the Motion tab, as you have the other tracks and your markers surrounding you for reference. It's easier on the eyes because you deal with one parameter at a time, and there are none of the display issues that can occur in the keyframe graph editor of the Motion tab, so it's much more accurate. Next, we'll look at adjusting and keyframing motion attributes in the canvas.